How's it going, guys? In this video, I'm going to show you how to install the Zippy Spacers in your LDY Cygnus, as well as the handle inlays. I'll start with the handle inlays because they're the fastest and the easiest. So each handle inlay has a lip, and that lip is going to face up. So what I'm doing is I'm going to wedge the corner of one inlay into the cutout, and then the corner of the other side into the other side, and then I'm going to take my thumb and smooth it out, and I'll take a finger and just go back and forth a few times, make sure it's seated properly. And I'm going to repeat that process for the other cutouts. So it's as simple as that. Now, while I've got both of these cutouts in, I'm going to show you how I remove them if you wish to remove them. I use a bent paper clip. You can see this one is actually coated in plastic, which I prefer to use. That way there's no risk of a metal paper clip scratching the titanium or the G10. So if you can get a paper clip that's coated in plastic, that is my preference. So I'm just going to insert the bent point of the clip here and push out, and then pull it out. For the other side, we can just push it through like so. I'm gonna reinstall these though. Do the full install here. You'll probably notice that when the inlays are all the way in and installed correctly, there's quite a bit of a lip on the cutout, and that maximizes grip. So you still get the grip of the cutout, but with a higher friction coefficient on the interior of the cutout. So it modifies the grip and deepens the sound considerably. So now let's talk about the spacer. The spacer can hold up to 3 tungsten weights, and I'm going to show you how to install those. The first goes right here, and you can press it in using the tip of a clicky pen. It should just pop right in. And then the other 2 pop into the base of the extension. So let's do the first one. Pop it in with a clicky pen. And then the second one goes in the other side. If you don't install any weights, your Cygnus is going to have less handle weight than the stock Cygnus, so it'll be more blade biased. If you wish to have approximately the same balance as a stock Cygnus, you would just use 1 weight. And if you want it to be more handle biased, have more end weight, you could use 2 and up to 3 weights. So this is the Cygnus spacer with all 3 weights installed. And if you ever want to remove them, I'm just going to show you how to remove them. This is a 2mm Allen key, and you can just pop it out. And you can do the same thing. There's a slit on the handle extension which you can use to pop them out. This is going to require a little bit of force. They're in there solid, so they don't wiggle around or hit the bell song or anything like that. So just be firm and apply firm but gentle force, and we can just wiggle it out just like that. I'm going to install all the weights just because that's how I've got the other spacer installed, and I'd like to match the balance on the safe handle. If I can get the ball in. Your patience with me is infinite. And all the weights are back in. So now let's go ahead and install this. So now I'm ready to install the spacer. I'm going to take my T10 driver and I'm going to start unscrewing the spacer screws at the bottom. And I'm going to be gentle here, and I'm going to make sure again that I'm unscrewing the sex bolt, which I am. I'll repeat the process for the second spacer screw. Again, making sure to unscrew the sex bolt. You can see the G10 inlays starting to pop out, so let's just screw that back in. We do not want to unscrew the G10 out. And now I'm going to put my thumb here on the G10 and just very slowly unscrew this so the G10 inlay stays in place. You're going to want to be very delicate here. You don't want the G10 to bend in any way. Well, this really wants the other side to unscrew, so we're going to just follow what the balisong wants here and unscrew it from that side. And let's see if I can't gently wiggle this one out. I just want to be very careful here. You guys might have to do the same thing. You don't want to bend the G10. Just applying some gentle force. It wants to move and take the G10 with it, unfortunately. Let me just give it a few turns here, see if it can wiggle itself out of the grip of the G10. See how I'm pushing and the G10's wiggling a little bit. That's really what I'd like to avoid. All right, well, it's really in there. I could push it, but I risk breaking the G10. So I'm going to try an alternative approach. And we're going to instead loosen up the pivot and the Zen pins. You're going to want to apply firm but delicate pressure here, gentle as well. You don't want to strip anything. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try and just lift up this slab. I'm going to need to completely undo the Zen pin screw. I'm going to try and lift up the slab entirely. It needs a little more clearance, so I'm going to give the pivot screw another slight turn, and then I'm going to rotate it. And pull out the stock spacer. And now I'm going to pop in the Zippy spacer. If you were able to undo the spacer screws without needing to mess with the pivot screws, lifting up the slab, if your spacer screws were not catching on the G10, you could have just slid the spacer in without messing with this. But it's good to be thorough here and show you guys what happens if the G10's catching, because it would not be fun to break that. So now I'm just going to lift up the slab again and push it down at the pivot. I'm gonna gently pull the extension this way so that the handle can see properly. And I'm gonna focus on first tightening down the pivot. And put the Zen pin screw back where it was. So what I'm gonna do is make sure everything's lined up nicely. I'm gonna insert this back in. And I'm gonna push the extension into the handle as I push the top slab down, and it should just pop right into place. And now let's screw it in. So I'm just gonna screw in both screws to a light resistance. And now what I'm gonna do is take the stock spacer, I'm gonna wedge it underneath the Zippy spacer, and I'm gonna then evenly screw these in until I can feel the handle catching on the stock spacer. And there it is. This kind of won't budge. So I'm gonna lightly unscrew this bottommost screw, quarter turn. Let's do it one more time. And now I can pull this out. So at this point, you're gonna wanna eyeball it and make sure that the handle slabs appear parallel here. And if your Cygnus was perfectly tuned, you could check for the tune to make sure it still has a full swing and a perfect tune. If the tune's imperfect, you may need to tighten or loosen these screws appropriately. And to my eye, I don't see any bowing or compression. The handle slabs look parallel. So for most of you guys, that's it. For any of the folks with calipers out there, I recommend doing this procedure. The first thing I'll do is I'm gonna make sure that I'm gonna measure the handle under, just at the edge of the extension. It should measure 14.1 millimeters, so it looks like just the rough way is pretty much dead on, so I'm not gonna mess with this screw anymore. But now let's go ahead and measure the channel width at the bushing, and it's 4.5. Yeah, just 4.5 millimeters. So I'm gonna see if I get 4.5 here. And I'm within a 20th of a millimeter. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a very slight turn on this bottom screw here. Maybe that was a 1/10 of a turn. And I'm just gonna do that again. I really want the handle slabs to be perfectly parallel. So I'm trying to match 4.5, that's the number to match. All right, it looks like I've matched it. I'm gonna double check that this measurement is still good, which it's not. So you can see that tightening down this bottom, the smaller screw, changed the measurement for the top screw. So I'm just gonna unscrew that, maybe a 1/10 of a turn, and remeasure 14.1, that's my target. And this is 4.5, that's my target. So you can see doing the, using the stock spacer as a wedge got us pretty much perfectly on target. But if you have calipers, you can make some fine adjustments that might be necessary or desired if you have a perfect tune and want to maintain perfection. Anyway, that is the complete installation of the Zippy Spacers for the LDY Cygnus. Thanks for watching, guys.